Good day and thank you for joining us for First Take on TV3 and 3FM. I'm Jifa Bampo. Today our guest is the Honorable Ayikoi Otoo, formerly Attorney General of the Republic, also former High Commissioner to Canada. Thank you for joining us on this edition of First Take. Thank you very much, Honorable Ayikoi Otoo, for joining us. So which one is better? Do we say Ambassador Ayikoi Otoo or Honorable Ayikoi Otoo?
I don't even know what to do, what to say. Some say HE, some say Honorable, some say also Ambassador. It's all part of the game.
I guess if you're a senior government official, you become an honorable for life. But of course, I think being an ambassador, that's also special.
Sure.
Thanks for joining us on First Take.
So
you've been back from Canada for quite a bit. I know you've been following some of our national issues. But first, I mean, how was the tenure in Canada?
Well, first you have to talk about the weather. You know, they refer to those places as North America. So it means that you are on top of the US and get into the Arctic region. And so the weather is not the one that people who have lived a very long time in tropical weather conditions would get used to. It's not easy. It's a little bit frightening and problematic for older people. So very old people, what they do is that during winters there, they rush to come back to the warm, temperate weathers, enjoy it, and then when they get into their springs, then they go back, you know. So that is number one. I mean,
so the weather for you was a small issue.
Sure, there you have some weather issues that you have to contend with because, again, when you find yourself in the capital, Ottawa, for example, where are you going? You know, it's not like Toronto. Most people know of Toronto, which is very, very bustling and full of life. But Ottawa is a very quiet place. And so most of the time, people are indoors. And you come and it's so cold, so you have to cover yourself and start watching your television, doing whatever you want to do inside, you know. And there are dangers during the snow period or season where you can slip. You know, these are things that they don't talk about, but people hurt themselves a lot by sleeping during the snow period, you know, winter, extreme winter, very, very cold, you know. But generally, okay, one may have to look at what they call their foreign policy towards Africa, and they divide it into two, especially Africa south of the Sahara, you know. And you find that they are more in tune with Kenya and South Africa, which is very natural for them because they have a lot of, there are people living there. You know, you have whites still in Kenya, South Africa. It used to be Zimbabwe, but there are a lot of fights there, and then Southwest Africa and all that. So,
but I know that Ghana has always had a very strong relationship with the Canadians. In fact, I think one of the most famous High Commissioners from Canada was called Ambassador Schramm, and he did and pursued a lot of development work and all that. In fact, I learned that he had actually come to Ghana as a young man as a volunteer, and later on he moved to Ethiopia after he left Ghana. So what would you describe the relationship between Ghana and Canada then?
Oh, the way you put it is right, it is strong, but it's the area when you are doing what we call economic diplomacy, which is to go and attract business to your country. And we know we are looking for development, so we are looking at factories and industries and the rest. That is where you have your problem. You know, when
are there some specific areas that they're interested in?
Capacity building. Generally, they want to build your capacity. So if you go back and look at what that ambassador did, it will be more in the area of capacity building, one of the things they did was to build the Canadian Technical Institute, which became Accra Technical, Institute and all that. Yes, but it is more in the area of capacity building. But if you are doing economic diplomacy, which
you're
is
looking
that
for
you
direct investment.
Direct investment.
You're looking for factories, businesses
exactly.
to set up.
Then you find that it's more in the area of extractive industries. There are about 16, 17, 18 of them, Asanko and the rest, but they are more in the extractive, more into gold mining, maybe oil and gas, but more into gold mining. And that is what their foreign policies seem to dictate to them, so that it becomes a little bit discouraging when you are looking for foreign direct investment in areas of building factories and industries that they may not be interested in that area.
But we're proficient in mining. We've been doing mining for a century. Isn't that an area of interest where we could see both mutual cooperation and investment?
It's always there because they come to invest in those areas. Fine.
So we have do we have a lot of, maybe what I'm asking is, do we have a lot of Canadian mining companies in
about
Ghana?
16 to 18. They are all here, mining. But the point is, this whole AGYAPA business and trying to see how you can benefit from what, belongs to you. I mean, the gold is found on our land, but how do we benefit? It is outsiders who come to do the mining, and then they dictate, what they want to give to us and all that. And it's a bit difficult trying to really get value out of it, you understand? So sometimes, yes, you get a lot of gold, you get a lot of oil, you get some revenue from there, but are you getting sufficient? Are you getting enough which you can leverage upon to do your own development? That's the issue. So they are around. I mean, that most of these are mining that takes place. What we get is not what we're supposed to get, and it's because we are unable to do it ourselves. And I was challenging them when I went there that you sit diasporans and then complain. What about you also going to look for oil rigs and coming to do some kind of venture? Try see if you can find gold, find some gold
oil similar to what the EU
they are doing, because
did at the time.
They will go and find money and then come and they call it venture capital,
yes,
to try and see if they will get something. And if they get it in commercial quantities, not that they will get, but they want to get it in commercial quantities, leverage on it and get their money, What do we do? In those areas, we are a little bit, handicapped because we don't seem to have the means to do the mining. And therefore, we are not getting the real value that we ought to get from these resources, which are also finite as they keep mining. You have to, if you are not getting anything more from here, then you move to another field, and then you move, and sometimes the recovery, okay, after you've done all these diggings,
You're a former Attorney General of the Republic and senior lawyer that I know that many respect your views. You talk about leveraging these natural resources that we have, and you've mentioned the AGYAPA Minerals royalty deal. The current administration, led by the finance minister, is seeking to bring back this revised deal to Parliament for approval. We understand the current Attorney General has looked at it. I think the concern that many have is that what is in the detail of the document that allows us to actually believe that we're getting what is due us. Last time there were concerns about the valuation, for instance. Government put forward a valuation of something between 500 million to about $1 billion. But then civil society says the valuations, had it been properly done, would fetch us something above $3 billion US. As somebody who's been Attorney General before, who has the privilege of some of these negotiations and documentation, What would you want to see in this AGYAPA royalties deal revised and resubmitted that would enable Ghanaians to see that this is truly a profitable deal and we are not just getting a pittance while someone else makes money for life?
It is an international commercial agreement, which means that it will need parliamentary approval. So the thing is that the thing should go to Parliament and everybody should be given the opportunity to have a look at it. Let them bring in their input. There must be consultations. No, I don't think that generally people are against it, because we are all agreed that it does not appear that we are getting value, from all these mining companies that we find here. So why don't we find a way of leveraging on it to get something for ourselves? Now, if the minority thinks that by forming a company and putting certain names there, it's like you trying to, do friends and family business.
I'm not sure it's just about putting certain names there. I think the question is, was this put out competitively for everyone who may have expertise in that area to throw their head into, to throw their hat in?
It started by attacking certain personalities whose names appeared. That once we see these names, it's family and friends.
The view is that it wasn't a transparent process. Maybe if it had been transparent and eventually everyone accepts that these people are the best qualified, I'm not sure if that would have been an issue.
It went to Parliament.
Later.
Yes, it did. But looking at it, some of these concerns were raised, which are legitimate. Why? If a known name, associated with it, why don't we maybe get someone else and, But the important thing to me is bipartisanship. I do not believe that people in the minority side think that we are getting what we ought to get. And if this is the best way to go about it, let it go back as they are proposed and let them look at it the best way that we can get value for our,
mineral resources.
For our mineral resources.
I understand that.
If the evaluation is wrong, let them do the evaluation again. What is wrong with that? Let's go back and do the evaluation. If we want to save ourselves from paying huge taxes and therefore we go to a place where we don't pay taxes, what is wrong with that?
Certainly, tax avoidance there's nothing wrong with tax avoidance.
With that?
However, I guess the other critical issue in reference to the name, which I would like us to clear up, is that the directors that would form this company, there was an indication that their tenure almost seemed for life. That was also a criticism about why they remained there irrespective.
I agree.
Isn't that a matter of concern, a lack of good governance or corporate governance?
No, it should be. That is why the minority should be given the opportunity to have their say about it. But to say that we should not bring it anymore, I don't think is the best way to go, because we are not benefiting. I strongly support it, that I think that that's the best way to go. So let's craft it well. Let's come together as a government.
So now, Ambassador Ayikoi Otoo, you've talked a bit about the AGYAPA royalties deal. We are yet to see when it will come before the House, whether it will come before the session ends, before the year ends. Some have said that it's not a surprise that the 2022 budget has stalled because we have a near split parliament, something we've not experienced before. First, let me take your views on this near split parliament where we have 137 for the NPP, 137 for the NDC, one independent candidate choosing to do business with the NPP that makes them the majority side. What are your thoughts about this near split parliament and how it's been running this year?
Well, clearly it is not the best. When you have the numbers, then you can say that let the minority have their say and then we will have our way. Because you have the numbers, they will talk and talk and talk, and then the speaker will put the question. And those who are in favor say aye, those who are against say no, and then, the ayes have it. And that's the end of the game, So where it is so close that you have to be careful about the number, especially when you are going to secret balloting, where you don't even know how somebody is going to vote, as we saw with the election of the speaker and the difficulties that arise. Then, as I said, it is not the best because you don't have the numbers to get your programs through. Now, look at...
You say you don't have the numbers, but isn't it also the case, the argument posited by some, that this is what Ghanaians want? They don't want a majority that has its way all the time. They want a parliament that collaborates, that cooperates in the public interest, in the interest of Ghanaians. That's the message of this near-split parliament.
I don't think the Ghanaians did that. I think getting to the end before the elections of 2020?
2020, December.
I think we lost the media fight and the communication was bad. In my view, we've done so well before the COVID. We had spoken about the free SHS, which people thought could not be done, had started. The railways was on course, the one district, one factory, the planting for food and jobs, and most of the things that we said, toilet for all and things like that, were all on course. We were doing very well. Getting to the end, I don't know how they lost the fight. And then the impression created was that the only thing working was even free SHS, which was even having difficulties.
But the truth of the matter is, when you raise critical issues with some of the appointees about the state of the economy, about, you know, the youth bulge and unemployment, they would then refer you to, well, we've done free SHS. It has put money in people's pockets because it means it's free. Any money spent on free SHS would mean you're not spending it, you can spend it on other things. A lot of the responses hinged on free SHS. I mean, you can't blame Ghanaians otherwise, because if they've seen the other things, that narrative will not bother anyone.
But you are not telling that you have not seen other things. There were roads being built, there were gutters, there was the asphalt, you know, overlays, the interchanges. Well, a lot of things were happening.
So,
I do not
so
think
for
that,
you, the
know,
campaign communication
failed. Getting to the end really failed because people held the country.
Is that what happened? Yeah. I know I asked you a question about near-split parliament, but now we're talking about elections. But still, let's finish this conversation. Is that really the case? Because maybe it is because your party, the New Patriotic Party, made a mistake about the individuals placed in parliamentary candidature positions. I'll give an example. If you have people where there were perceptions that they were sponsored against tried and tested individuals, it meant that these individuals who ended up in these positions were party favorites. They were not necessarily the favorites of the wider constituency. And so you had the president, Nana Akufo-Addo, winning more votes cumulatively than his parliamentary candidates. So you did well, the MPP did well at the presidential level, but didn't do well at the parliamentary level. You can't blame that on poor campaign communication.
No, it's always been an issue, you know, where you think that this should be the best candidates, you know, because go back to the Fomina guy, you know.
Isn't that a clear indication of how the party treated an individual that should not have happened?
That's exactly the point.
And even the election of Speaker Bagbin, there's a perception that it is also because of the way Speaker Ayikoi treated this Fomina MP, which is what probably led to his exit. It
does happen. I'm not going to make excuses for it. We do. I mean, NDC suffered it. They said so, that they decided to pick candidates that they thought.
Okay, then you can't blame the campaign communication in December.
Not necessarily, because how many of them were involved? You know, Fomina was clearly, you know, an unfortunate situation where the guy said, look, I'm on course. I mean, Joe Wise, it happened to Joe Wise, where he had to run independent, only to come to Parliament to say, now I'll be on the side of the MPP and all that. So it has happened, and sometimes overconfidence. That, you know, looking at the statistics and the way things are going, there's no way. It's like this argument that even if you put a goat there, it will win. You know, so why worry? Why bother? You know, so the research work should also be done. You know, but those things are not, for me, that which caused the problem. It was the poor communication getting to the end. We were on top. People praised the government. When it came even to management of COVID, people were happy about the things that were going on. How come? You know, the Vincent Assisi's, you know, theory that NDC is an election-winning machinery. When the time comes, they know what to say to the people. And if you are not careful, you lose. And again, you find
So the mantra posited by Vincent Assisi, the NDC went into election mode.
It works. It works for them, I'm telling you. I'm telling you, they can ruffle you.
So for you, the near split parliament we had were because of electoral mistakes on the part of the New Patriotic Party. Okay, but now you have this near split parliament. You've had to work with it, but it's not so much a burden on the government as opposed even to the opposition, because people are watching them critically to see how they work. But in respect of budget 2022, there's a view that it was rejected. What's your view about what went down?
Well, that was what happened. But the point is, was it constitutional? So you have to go back and look at the constitutional provisions. Article 102 talks about quorum. And then Article 1041 talks about voting on questions.
When you are in the House.
Exactly.
You must be present.
You must be present, but the number there is different. Half of all parliamentarians, one half of all parliamentarians should be there before the question is put. So if the speaker says, I'm back and I see we have a quorum, he's talking about 1/3, which is 102. And that clearly would be unconstitutional. And then you go into the majority walkout. If they did, it means that we all know the number there is 137.
The majority have said that the reason they asked for time out was also because there were aspects that the minority wanted incorporated into the budget, for which reason they had to do that. Isn't it the case then that the majority did not read the mood well? They should have at least engaged the finance minister, knowing the kind of parliament we have and the risks that lie in therein, should have made more effort to engage.
I think he did, and rather the misstep was that before the question was put, the finance minister was asking for delay so he would have more time. So I think that was the misstep. They thought that that would have been granted. So once they grant that, they can then come back and do the needful.
Whose job would it be to determine whether there's been a constitutional breach?
The speaker.
The speaker. He's not currently available.
So the deputies will be there.
What's the view that the deputies may take a different... What would happen if the deputies took a different position?
Because they will be the people presiding, and they by their rules, is the person presiding who decides on anything, gives a ruling.
The speaker, what's your view of how he has conducted business?
Well, if you ask me, I think that is one of the most experienced parliamentarians that they have. He's been there for about 5 or 6 times, if my memory serves me right, or even. So what is it that he doesn't know about the rules as well as the practice and conventions of the House? So such a person should be able to do his own thing in terms of relying on his own experiences, unlike a new person who may have to consult widely and read the rules. It shouldn't be a problem. I mean, there's
the criticism that he's become an activist speaker. There's the risk of him being potentially biased, and there's a concern that he's not being the referee he should be. Do you share those thoughts?
Well, it is true that he should not take part in the debates. you know, his duty is to guide the debates, you know, and listen to all sides and recognize whoever is standing on his feet and wants to make, you know, so he doesn't generally take part. And we, maybe of late, that he's been talking. Because, you know, when you talk too much, you are likely to make some mistakes here and there. The Ghana people will tell you, fine, so long as you go and carry water with your pot, it's likely that one day it will break. But if you don't go there, nothing breaks, you know. So long as he keeps talking, and of late he's saying, I'm number 2, I'm number this, and you know, that creates some difficulty. Otherwise, I think that is done so well so far, and so his advisors should talk to him. I know they have a legal counsel there that advises him on some matters and the rest. And they should not create the impression that they're trying to make life uncomfortable, you know, for the majority side. So maybe of late he's talking too much, I agree. And so he should cut down on some of his comments if he can.
Our guest is Ambassador Ayikoi Otoo, former Attorney General of the Republic of Ghana, also former High Commissioner of Ghana to Canada. So, Ambassador Ayikoi Otoo, we've been talking a bit about the budget, but let's speak a bit about some of the specifics. So, when the budget was read, I think 3 key issues caught people's attention: the e-levy, and then the Momo tax, and then the abolition of the road toll collection. First, let me ask you about the road toll collection.
Well, you looking at a government policy, economic policy, and so government has weighed the policy, and government is satisfied that not much is coming out of the road tolls. Rather, it's creating a lot of traffic and pollution and things. Because anytime you get there, you have to, you know, be in a queue for a very long time. So if we are not getting the benefits, then why don't we just stop it? But then it's said that the PPP has not also been abandoned, which means that if there is a private individual who wants to go into partnership with government to build a road and toll it, maybe that will be done. And so that this one is only for what they call public roads. So that if it is not a public road by a private something, it should be done, because the idea is laudable. We all use the road. The road, you know, with time, develops manholes, you know, this must be fixed, you know, and if there's no ready money, why can't we ask those who use it to contribute so we can always maintain the road? America, elsewhere, they always, you know, tolling. I went to Singapore and we drove over something like, you know, an overhead, but we're down. And then I saw something happen in the car, so I asked the driver, what's this? He said, oh, this is electronic tolling. Immediately you pass, something would be deducted, you know, and then when it's finished, like the, you know, whatever for
your
our
electronic card, you have to top it up.
You just go and top it up. So if we are afraid that people there are not accounting, why don't we adopt something like that? Because the system is
the
there.
budget says public roads will not be tolled,
Exactly.
but it doesn't remove the option of having private roads being tolled so that the investor can recoup their investment.
Exactly.
Now, the roads minister immediately implemented the abolition of the road toll, to the shock and surprise of many. How do we reconcile that? There have been lots of schools of thought that he should be held accountable, he should be held for causing financial loss to the state. You're a lawyer, a former Attorney General. Tell us, has he done wrong, and how do we correct it?
Well, there has been some justification that if you have a power to do something, it also involves the power to suspend and to, do other things.
Those are administrative requirements, but it takes a certain process to approve that.
No, if it were administrative, that's much easier to do. But if it is law, that you cannot impose a fine or you cannot impose a levy on anybody except through Parliament, then it makes sense that Parliament should be the only place where this thing can be revoked, But then when he says that the Constitution has given me the power, which impliedly gives me also the authority to suspend it, so I've suspended it based upon the Constitution, then you have a constitutional interpretation in your hands.
So in the case of the roads minister, the best thing or the best solution would be what? Somebody goes to the Supreme Court to challenge this decision he took and determine whether it's unconstitutional or not? Because
that is what is basing his claim upon, that the power given me includes power to suspend. And so I have only suspended it.
Okay. Now, in terms of the e-levy, the Akufo-Addo administration over the past 5 years has been driving a digitalization agenda. Many have criticized the e-levy, saying that it undermines the work the vice president has put in over the last 5 years. True or false?
You see, like I was saying that we're doing very well. This Ghana card, for example, it's been on the cards for a very long time. We're able to re-rule it. A number of people have got, I believe you have your card.
Yes.
It's all part of the digitalization that we're doing, which was going well. I agree. It is the threshold that maybe people are complaining about.
Yes, the 1.75%. Should it be reduced?
That is what some people are pushing. And I think that government being listening government, and especially having regard to the fact that people are getting used to the Momo. And we are also in COVID times where you don't want, in-person interaction, and therefore Momo will be the best way out. And it's also saving us. Fortunately for us, we don't have people hacking into Momo accounts and things. People have
we
not
do
been
have
complaining.
Momo fraudsters.
Yeah, but it's not that widespread. So people still have some confidence in just sending money. Except that sometimes it gets lost if you are not sure of where you are sending.
And you don't make a quick report.
So with the way things are going and people can pay, with it, surely I would think that if the consensus is that the 1.75 is a bit high, especially when the service providers are already taking, I think, 1%, then that would be an addition, So we can look at it, and from what I've heard, research work done in Uganda, Ivory Coast, Kenya, and the rest showed that immediately these things were introduced, they collapsed the system.
People withdrew from engaging with a contactless payment and returned to payments in cash.
So surely, like I said, it's also part of the media work to push it, that let's at this stage, the difficulty is that we are unable to balance our budgets. It's never been.
Okay. I mean, it's interesting you've talked about our inability to balance the budget. Obviously, there's a wide gap between the revenue streams and the expenditure streams. The criticism, and you've been in government, and even coincidentally as a former high commissioner, maybe this is even clearer to you. There's a view among many Ghanaians that government expenditure is simply too high. If government wants to actually narrow the gap, government must control its expenditure.
Of course, government listen and reduce the over 100 and something ministers, isn't it?
Oh, but Honorable Ayikoi,
no,
it's not
from
just
there.
About the reduction of the number of ministers.
Yes, I'm starting from there.
Okay.
That we reduce the number of ministers immediately. But if you follow the budget well, that the monies we collect go into payment of salaries. A huge chunk
of it. Almost, I'm told, heading to 70% of it goes. It goes into debt repayment.
That is another issue altogether. If you are unable to balance your budgets and you still have program that you want to follow, then you're going to go and borrow. And you know the way this capitalist system works, they want your interest first, leaving the capital staying somewhere. So you want to make sure that you pay your interest repayment. So you even take a loan to go and pay interest. You know, so if you are unable to balance and you are not collecting enough revenue, then the whole idea of borrowing would never stop.
Yeah, the MPP told us that we would not borrow. The MPP told. So how do you reconcile that now?
No, so you go and see the budget.
Borrowed and we are in a hole.
So you go and see the budget, and then you find that the hole is too huge, that you need to plug it. And the only way out is to go looking for something from outside.
In terms of the budget itself, overall, there are certain things in it that many say they've not seen manifest. These are promises that the NPP has not met or delivered on. Should we hope that over the next 3 or 4 years that will be delivered on, whilst people have complaints today?
I hope so. I thought the president was out of the country to look for some money to set up the development bank.
We have that money already.
That's what I'm saying. So it's still the problem of looking for the cash somewhere. And so they might be working on it. You know, the issue of the youth unemployment is a huge headache for everybody. You remember during the NDC period, there was a minister saying that they can even go and collect stones and fill potholes. That would be a job. And then we had this difficulty of World Bank intervention and saying that there's a freeze.
Because of the IMF
exactly,
package
IMF
that we
and
had
World Bank,
gone into.
There's a freeze on employment. So we came and we met this thing. We had to think of this national, the NACOV or
the
something.
The NAPCO.
We
had to think of the
NAPCO. Bring in the NAPCO, and because we could not make it permanent, it's like, oh, this is some temporary thing.
Program for the youth.
But they inherited it. You don't see that they created it.
You can't keep referring to what had been inherited 5 years before.
We keep changing your land. Now we are talking about 1D, 1F in the hope that industries will be created, people will find jobs to do.
Let me move away from issues relating to the budget to other controversial issues that have engulfed the country as well in recent times. So we know that Parliament has begun public hearings on the controversial anti-LGBTQ bill. What are your thoughts about this bill to start with?
Well, first of all, you know it's a private members' bill, which means that it's not being sponsored by government. So there are some private individuals in Parliament that are sponsoring it. They set up a consultative group to advise them to look at all the ramifications, including our culture. And at the end of the day, they've come out with this draft bill, I think that what the intellectuals are missing is the other letters, beyond the L and the G. Because the L, which is lesbianism, and the G, which is gayism, we all know what they stand for. What about the rest? Who is a queer? Who is a transgender? Who is asexual? Who is bisexual? Who is this? That is what this bill, in my view, is trying to look at. That two consenting adults can do anything they want in private. They are two consenting adults. They can go in and do whatever they want in private. It need not be between a male and a female or a male and a male. It can be anything, so long as they have consented to do whatever it is that they are doing. So if you narrow down the issue to the fact that allowed consenting adults to do what they want to do, then you are leaving out the other letters, which look strange and as if those...
The question is, though, that do we need legislation that specifically targets identity? Because everyone is first and foremost human.
Yes.
The ultimate legislation should be one that recognizes the humanity of all,
yes,
not the specific identification of
yes.
someone who is whether transgender or this or that.
Yeah, including where to put a prisoner, a thief, or a murderer. You know where to put. Hasn't he got humanity? He has humanity, but he has done something for which we think he should be put or locked up. We cannot allow that.
You are not criminalizing the robber because it is his act that is being punished. But the view is that with individual identity, you are seeking to criminalize the identity.
The promotion. It is the promotion and the advocacy associated with it that has put these people on the edge to make sure that these things stop. You remember how it started, where an office was open and some ambassadors attended and gave vent to it and said you should go ahead. I mean, those are the issues. Haven't we had what we call Kujubisias in this country?
And that's the point. We've had them.
Yes.
We've never had to
so there was
criminalize
no
them.
There was no promotion. They could do their things. We know them. Most of them die. Where are they? Those that you have known. When I was growing up, all the Kujubisias I saw, they are all dead. You know, so
but you see,
don't promote the idea. That is what they are saying.
Okay.
Don't set up a resource center and don't go to a secondary school and bring women like Volta Rigi, you know, Ola or whatever. You go and then teach them how to. You are confusing people to the extent that when somebody gives birth, you don't know which gender. They say leave it.
Okay. But there's also the view that homosexuals are not asking for any recognition. They are only asking that if I'm walking on the street, no one should assault me because they know I'm a homosexual.
Have they been assaulted?
Oh, a good number of them have in recent times. Yes.
It's not a common practice.
It's quite common, sir. What for you should be the objective of the Parliament's Legal, Constitutional and Parliamentary Affairs Committee that is undertaking these public hearings and hearing from everyone who has presented
I'm just going
memoranda.
to repeat it again, that I don't think it's targeted necessarily at the gays and the lesbians. Things we have known, but it
criminalizes them.
Those queer, these. I mean,
no, but it criminalizes them too.
A human being said, "As for me, I'm queer."
Okay, but it criminalizes them too. So it's not exactly accurate to say they are not part of it. They are mentioned specifically.
I remember somebody who said he felt like an animal, so he went and put on some, animal clothing, and he was jumping in the. And somebody fired. Only to see that it's a human being who was feeling animalist. So you can feel anything and you think you are okay there.
So, but you see, as Attorney General, you know that we have body of law that punishes homosexuality.
Already?
Yes. So why do we need a new one?
Well, that's a comprehensive one. You can always have a comprehensive law. You can say that this bill is aimed at consolidating, like the New Land Act. We have repealed about 13 individual acts that were all having an impact on land. So you put all of together and then you say now we have Act 1036, which is a consolidation of all the laws.
Why not rather ensure the enforcement of the old laws?
Where are you going
or
to enforce?
Amend? So exactly the point. So why create a new one that probably may not be enforced as well?
Well, if you know that the thing isn't, like the new IGP, that he says if you drive around and he has cameras, he will order you to appear because your car has been seen driving in the middle and the rest. At least if you know that it is there, don't do it. You will be careful about how you go about it, unlike when it is not there. But I am telling you that if you ask me personally, it is all the others which go behind and which follow the L and the G. Those people are not, in my view, correct.
Okay, but those who fall under the L and the G, they are also targeted. All right. So
it's not even they targeting like somebody will put it, it's already against the law. They know unnatural carnal knowledge.
Exactly.
So they also know that already.
So that's why I asked, why do we need, that's why I asked why we
So
need
why don't you ask why they put it in that law in the 1960s? It's already there. Didn't they know that they are also human beings? Okay. So we cannot always justify everything on grounds of human rights. There's so many laws that infringe on our rights, because if we are left loose, there are things we will do which will be a danger, as I said, to ourselves as well as to other people.
So as High Commissioner, someone who has interacted with the diplomatic community at a very high level, what do you project the impact is going to be on Ghana if we pass this bill?
Not much. I mean, people talk, and it's not always that they are actualized, as you said. You know, some of, if you ask me,
it won't affect aid.
The black diplomats, for example, when somebody is trying to promote this thing, and then you are invited, and they say, oh, we are celebrating humanity, and that the ambassador of this country and the ambassador of this country are hosting this thing, and then they are inviting you to come. You know, immediately among ourselves, we just decide that we are boycotting. Okay. And nobody will go. So we know.
But will it affect Ghana's image globally, you think?
No,
because we've signed, you Attorney General, you know, we've signed up to all manner of charters and all that. What does that mean for our image on the world stage?
I cannot predict anything yet, but it's the pressures that they try to bring to bear. And don't forget that this is not the first time. It was put on Kufuor. He said it won't happen. The same pressure was put on Atta Mills. He said it won't happen. You have your whatever. I mean, look at this situation. People who talk about the Judeo-Christian tradition, you always talking about Christianity. And you are now saying that the priest can go in there and marry two people of the same sex. How does it accord with your own Christian values?
Nobody is asking for that in Ghana, as far as I know.
You know, but it's part of it. If he's free to do whatever he likes, it will continue to say that, me, I want to marry. Already they are doing those, we see them on social media. 2 women marry and the rest. I've not seen of the men, but there are a lot of social media about women who claim that they have married and things like, you know. So it's problematic. It's problematic. I mean,
should the Attorney General have picked up this private members bill early on?
That is the argument being made, that if for any reason people think that even the private members bill is not sufficient, then the Attorney General can take it over so that he can look at. But if the end result is to ban some of them, and I remember when I went for vetting to be appointed Attorney General, this question was put to me, and I told them, I don't think we have reached there yet. Maybe when we get there, we know. The president said the same thing, and people were trying to lambast him. It was not, you know, an issue, because we know some of these Kojubeses and the rest that move about in our societies. We are not bothered about them. So it is the advocacy, and then when it reaches that fervent level of, no, it must happen now, it must happen now, that you see some kind of reaction. If they have not taken part in setting up, resource centers to teach people how to behave, I mean, you are having practical difficulties in Canada, where a man who has been imprisoned or going to prison says, I'm transgender, so I want to be put to the female's prison.
Has that happened?
But it's happening, and we are hearing that some of them are saying that rapes are beginning to happen there. And so you are a female, you go to the washroom, or female, you see a man. He says, I'm transgender, I've also come to use the place. I mean, what is this? As for me, I'm queer. What does queer stand for? What is it?
Now let me move to another controversial issue. The president is your friend, I believe, good friend. He's been criticized for engaging in profligate travel and feeding his creature comforts. Those words are not mine. They are from the NDC. And this has to do with recent international travels, South Africa and France, where he's alleged to have spent 2.8 million cedis on a chartered jet. He's traveled to the UK and Germany, where he is alleged to have spent 3.4 million for a similar chartered jet. We know he went for COP26 in Glasgow, and there's an upcoming trip to the United States. We're not sure how he's going, but if anyone's guess is as good as mine, maybe it will still be via chartered jet. First, this issue has come before Parliament. There's been no clear answer about the costs of these travels. In a time of economic difficulty, in a time of challenges for many Ghanaians, should the president be expending these alleged amounts, or should he be traveling by private, luxury jet on his official assignments?
Is the jet sufficiently competent to do the long distance travels, what we have now, or it is limited to only the African region?
But that's exactly the issue. The government, through the Minister of Defense or National Security, has declined to come clear on that. And it's important that they do, because the last time there was any major incident was what? 2 years ago. Nothing has happened since, at least that we are aware of. And so if the president has to use alternative travel, they must tell us why. That is not happening.
Well, the security couples are telling us that presidential travels are top secret matters. And therefore, they do not think that it should be handled by the public or what people are calling transparency.
But is it about the travel or the cost of the travel that should be transparent?
No. I mean, I see the point you are making, but they will tell you that the president's security is as important.
Nobody disputes that.
Yes.
It's for the reason that many are questioning these expenses in challenging times. The optics don't look good.
Well, at the end of the day, you leave it to the security people to handle, because you see that it is because of the security aspects, that is why even the presidential jet is run and handled by the military. So what we have now, is it competent, or we need a bigger one once and for all to satisfy? This is the first country that had independence.
Do you think we need a bigger one?
Why? If there is a way of tweaking whatever it is that we have now for something, buy in, give it out and get something which will satisfy everybody, why not? And the security and save us some money and all that,
You talk about what the security couples say about safety. It's a national security issue. I guess no one disputes that, but at the same time, we are putting the life of our president and his team in the hands of a private individual, a commercial entity that owes no allegiance to Ghana. The pilot is likely not Ghanaian. The crew is likely not Ghanaian. And so if we are going by the argument of safety, certainly it's two things. It's either we use our jet where we know the status and allegiance of the individuals flying, or if the view is to procure a new jet, we do so. Then we know that it is because of these reasons we are doing so.
Yes, but you've heard of marshals on the plane. For even, commercial travels, sometimes we have people at the back who are there to help with terrorist attacks and all that. And so when they say it's a top secret thing, you don't know who are in the plane. So
but you're not addressing the economic question for me.
The group. Yeah, I know.
You're not addressing the economic question for me, because the criticism of the president, maybe even by extension the government, is that the government is insensitive, that the government is out of touch with how the people feel, especially The last 2 years have been very difficult for many because of COVID-19. Many who had full-time jobs may probably be in part-time jobs or have lost their jobs entirely. And yet, these are the amounts allegedly being expended. So beyond, yes, the security aspects of it, I mean, can't he travel cheaper?
Well, as I said, it's a policy matter, it's a security matter. I think he's listening. He keeps saying that he would love to hand over power to an MPP government. And I don't think that he will wish to do things that will rather jeopardize that opportunity. So he should be listening, and I'm sure within the shortest possible time we should find a solution to this thing if it's really a problem that has to be tackled. Because if you endanger your future government, because he's doing second term, which means by constitutionally it cannot run anymore, and you want to hand over to them, say, because of these things that your president did, we will not give you the opportunity. Then your wish to hand over to, an MPP government will fizzle out. And so let's hope that he's also listening, apart from what the capos are telling him, the security capos. He should also listen to the, advice of the others.
Ambassador Ayikoi Otoo, former Attorney General, former High Commissioner to Canada, is our guest on First Take.